But let's talk about roads. And this is, boy, the vexing issue and where I'm going to need your help as governor. The federal trust fund, we all know this, the federal trust fund is going to be in a negative balance situation just in a couple of years. Prop 3, which we Missourians passed, that allowed bonding authority for our State Department of Transportation. Those bonds have been utilized. We've made some improvements to our state highways. All of those things important. I tip my cap to the Missouri Department of Transportation. They have helped restore our confidence and credibility and their ability then to do what they're designed to do, and that is, help have good roads and infrastructure, including bridges here in the state. In fact, they received one of the highest awards the governor could award them as far as a business type of award for a government entity, which I think should be applauded. But we have this vexing problem. And so we have to have a dialogue, and it has to be a dialogue. And it's going to take all the stakeholders. It's going to have to take leadership from the governor to talk about this. It's going to have to, just as we did on the river issues, we're going to have people at the table, and we're going to have to hear one another out. I'm excited about some of the prospects that you see around the country. Last week, spoke with a fellow who was involved with the Indiana initiative, where public-private partnerships, that there are monies out in the private sector that we may be able to leverage. Now, I know that there were some, the Indiana may not be exactly the model we want to use. I want to be kind here, the press is here. We may not want to exactly use the Indiana model, but I think it's a good discussion point for us. In addition to economic development, which you're curious about and interested in, it's also, quite frankly, a matter of safety. There are highways, the district, John, you've described it very well, Columbia up to Iowa, over to Illinois, into St. Charles County, down toward the Lake of the Ozarks, that quarter of the state, and there are too many highways where white crosses have been placed in the rights of way because, in addition to economic development, it's a matter of safety. And some of you talked about, for instance, your children going to college. When we put them on the roadway, we want them to get there safely. We want them to get home safely. And so it's vitally important for us to have this dialogue across the state. And certainly I'm willing to take that on as your governor. With that, let me stop. And because you may have some specifics about, Dr. George, about education or whatever, I want to make sure we have plenty of time then for questions and answers. So please don't be bashful. And John, give me a signal before the big hook comes out, because I'd like to wrap up at the end. Yes, Dr. George.
Well, Congressman, you gave me the opportunity.
That's
with respect to higher education, the level of funding per capita for higher education in Missouri is among the lowest in the nation. It's not the lowest among those that actually go to the universities. It's somewhere in the middle, but that reflects that fewer of our people in Missouri are going to higher education. We've had an erosion of our budget, although more recently, in the last 2 years, we're seeing a little bit more in terms of increasing. What's your stance on higher education, particularly public education, and how can the state enhance public education? And do you see a correlation between higher education and economic development?
I do. Let me answer that question first. I absolutely do. We have to create an economy, a climate here where every kid, whether you come from the farm or whether you're from the inner city, that you have the Missouri dream, and that is that you can find not just a job in Missouri, but a career should you choose it. And so education is important, whether it is the four-year research institution, whether it's your campus, St. Louis, and the unique things you're doing, or even community colleges and tech schools. We have to be able to prepare our young people, K through 12 and beyond, grade school to grad school, to give them that skill set. And again, just as we talked about the technological edge that we have here through life sciences, we are playing catch up as far as making sure that our young people have the skill set necessary for these jobs for the international economy. And so I absolutely see a connection between our education system and the ability for us to thrive here with economic development. My view, of course, and it was rumored some months ago that that I was actually hoping to be your boss, and so I'm vitally interested in higher education. Here's what I would like to see. first of all, I absolutely supported the governor's initiative, the Lewis and Clark initiative. Others in this race have not. They've been very vocal in their criticism, but what has happened, it seems, as watching the discussion and the debate in our halls of state government, higher education get the crumbs off the table. I would like to see, if this is workable, a funding formula for higher education that may be similar to something that we do for K through 12. So that we have the type of investment, at least the certainty of investment, that if our economy continues to grow and as we see revenues enhanced in Jefferson City, that there is a type of formula, or at least some sort of certainty. And maybe the formula, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this later, maybe the formula per se is not the way to go, but we still are not back. I think, when the big axe fell in 2001, higher education is still not back in raw dollars to where we were before then. And so for all of those reasons, and I would say, not just to you, because I know community colleges are represented as well, one of the reasons that I, at the federal level, have opposed setting a cap on the amount of tuition increase, for instance. I know that's all the rage, that we see the growing cost of tuition, and yet the community colleges were the first to tell me that we are already, in fact, who's here from the community college? Yeah, that you're already very efficient. Lean and mean is how Dr. Karen Herzog at the time at East Central College used to tell me, a constituent who was very passionate about it. And so the idea is that when you artificially limit, again, the intention is good, because we're trying to put together the ability for our kids to go on and get additional jobs, skills, or perhaps a 4-year college degree is appropriate. Artificially setting the rate of tuition increases is not the way to go, and really would harm our tech schools and community colleges. So I hope I've answered your question, but I would love to hear, not now the forum, but ideas about why that this idea of a funding formula for higher education is a good one or not, and I'd love to continue the dialogue.